Hello, Tiffany. This is an absolute delight to have you, one of my good Judies, on here. Welcome to the Black Fundraisers podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be here. So thank you for thinking of me and for including me in your project.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wouldn't have it any other way. When I reached out to you and expressed interest in paying homage to AAPI Heritage Month, I mean, you were the only person that I even thought of having a conversation with. So thank you for indulging me.
No, thank you. Again, it's such an honor. As you know, we work with some amazing individuals in this field. And for you to even think of me, again, thank you.
Absolutely. So, Tiffany Ker I know, but the good people listening may not know that my girl Tiffany Ker here is the advancement director at the Constellation Fund. We got to know each other. I mean, like, Tiffany is such an OG, y'all. Y'all don't even know. Tiffany connected with me when I first started podcasting, when I didn't really know who was listening. I'm not going to say I didn't know what I was doing, but it was very experimental, right? I was just sounding off and talking about things that impacted Black fundraisers and fundraisers of color in general. And you were a part of that tribe, that reached out to me. And I'm forever grateful for that, because it's been a delight getting to know you. But hey, I know you. I want the good people listening to get to know you. So tell the good people listening a little bit about the Constellation Fund and what you do there.
Yeah. And yes, I would say you do know what you're doing. And so, yeah, stories with me. And I think, and similar to what I will say too about my own experiences and about the Constellation Fund, is that it may seem kind of mishmash. It may seem kind of like out there, but it's all connected and they're all meaningful. And they've all shaped who we are today. And so thank you. But yes, so my name is Tiffany Ker Xiong, and I am the advancement director at the Constellation Fund. Constellation started out maybe around 5 years ago. And we are a philanthropic institution that, yes, gives out grants to nonprofits who alleviate poverty in the Twin Cities. But what makes us a little bit different is that we use a evidence-driven approach to determine, like in terms of to find, fund, and support impactful nonprofits here in the Twin Cities. Really at the basis of our model and our approach and our mission is really that we all know great impactful organizations, whether or not, from our own personal experiences, from our work, through our friends. But at the end of the day, we're trying to solve poverty. We're really trying to move our community forward. And how do we do that if we don't have all of the information and data and evidence in front of us? And again, as we know, and this is probably another conversation too, is that, like, who has access to data? Who holds that data? Who has the resources to give to a nonprofit? So we're really trying to really take away that privilege and really say, we need to look at our communities. We need to look at our neighborhoods. Like, who needs it the most? Who's actually doing the work that's actually changing lives in our community? And so I'm very honored to be part of the Constellation Fund. And then in my role, it's unique in that even though we are a funder and we give out grants to nonprofits, I'm on the fundraising side of the house. And so your traditional nonprofit side. And so we fundraise. And so that way, every dollar that comes in, we give out to the community.
No, so I absolutely love that. So many things that I want to react to. The fact that this fund exists to address what I consider to be one of the most infamous inequities, right? When we think about structural inequities, poverty is dastardly, it's a thief for so many reasons, right? And I'm very public about the fact that I grew up in extreme poverty in Oakland, California, and the things that poverty took from me as a young person, right? My mom, having to be gone and trying to make a dollar out of 15 cents. It took away access to human capital, to social currency, to resources that really would have benefited me and my family at that time. So I love and support the fact that that is the work that you all are doing. And I'm really encouraged by the fact that it sounds like the Constellation Fund is saying, listen, enough with the show ponies that are out here, you know, those organizations that everyone knows. Let's hold space. Let's examine and beat the bushes and find organizations in the community that have remarkable initiatives and responses and strategies to abate poverty.
Yes, that is absolutely correct. And, you know, like, and what I will say too is that, like, organizations of all sizes, big or large, legacy, neighborhood organizations, they're all doing impactful work, but it's that matter of, like, are we addressing symptoms? Are we trying to address the root cause of poverty?
The root cause. There we go. Fighting the root, get into the root.
Mm-hmm. And as we know too, of the, like, being a person of color, is that, like, just because their programming works or intervention works for some people, it may not make sense for my family, which is Hmong, or a community of color. And so really trying to get into, like, not only just addressing the root causes, but also of, like, when you add in the nuances and the contours of our communities, like, what actually makes sense, what is actually needed for the people actually living in our community. And I would say too that I also, you know, like, I am a child of immigrants. I grew up poor. I'm one of 8. And so I hear you and I echo that, you know, and for myself and for many of my friends too, and for those that I, you know, like, have got to know over my time, is that, you know, like, you're absolutely right, is that, like, when you don't have access to food, when you don't have a stable house over your head, when you're not sure if bills can be paid, or, like, you see your parents struggling, you as a child having to translate for your parents while trying to figure out how to do your homework. Of course, like, you're not, like, the pathway that is in front of you is way different than someone who has everything. And
Absolutely. I talk about it, and just, well, the way that I describe it is being born on first base, being the furthest away from, you know, the home plate, right? And having a barrier at every turn, right? So I want to take this moment and just celebrate your resilience, celebrate my own resilience, and brush my collar off a little bit, because breaking a cycle of extreme poverty and even generational poverty is not an easy feat, right? And to take that lived experience with poverty and to go and work in a space and in a role where you're fighting the very thing that had its foot on your neck is the ultimate clapback.
oh, thank you. Yeah, well, thank you. And I would say that it's not by accident that I got here. I'm, you know, like, I am sitting here and talking with you because of individuals like you know, like, as you know, and as I said, like, yes, it's breaking out of poverty, but I'm also very conscious and very humbled by just me being a fundraiser of color, being a Hmong fundraiser in an institution like Constellation in our community. Unfortunately, it is still groundbreaking. And so, like, yes, we
Yes.
need to break out of poverty, but of, like, we also need to hit milestones of, like, how do we individually but collectively move this forward? Because as you and I know, like, I wouldn't be able to do this work if I didn't have you and others cheering me on and supporting me. Like, we all need to do this, pushing from our various positions and roles and where we reside in our community to get there together.
Absolutely. So you raised a really wonderful point, and I want to kind of double down on that. Being an Asian American woman, working in the fundraising sector, I mean, at the intersection of fundraising and philanthropy, fighting poverty. I talk often about what my lived experience has been like. And, you know, just as an ode to you and others that'll glean some inspiration from this particular episode and in celebration of AAPI Heritage Month, you know, I want to hear from you. What has that road been like, right? At the intersection of your race, gender, working in this space. Talk about some of the challenges that you've been faced with in this journey to create more inclusive and equitable opportunities for others from historically minoritized racial groups.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say that this like the best way to start to respond is to really talk about how I got into fundraising. I think for a lot of folks, and I was saying that this is not true for all, but for a lot of individuals, like we didn't wake up or go to school, but like I wanted to become a fundraiser in elementary.
Right.
No, I think many of us kind of stumbled into it, and I sure stumbled into it. But for me, the way it was a conscious choice to learn fundraising for me. At the basis of the work that I do here at Constellation, and even in my past roles, at the basis of what I do, fundraising to philanthropy, to like events, even at the root of it, it is community organizing. And so I got my start in this work by working on political campaigns. And so it got to the point where it was right before the last few weeks of election day. So like it's like commonly referred to as get out the vote. And so we were told that all of the organizers of color on that campaign was told to write a plan using all of the lessons learned, insights from community conversations, accomplishments from the past few months. It really kind of like write a plan for like how do we use these last 3 or 4 weeks effectively to really kind of get out the vote, if you would say. And so I came to that table prepared. Obviously, I did my due diligence. And not only that, but what made that plan so special was that it was like really designed through the help of my mentors and my coaches, from leaders from the Hmong community. And so it was rooted on not only just lessons learned and insights from the past few months, but from years of other campaigns that they've worked with, engaged with, and from learnings in general from all different types of initiatives. And so when I presented my plan, I was essentially told that if I wanted to do it this way and hire this number of canvassers and set it up this way, I needed to fundraise for my own dollars. And so as you can imagine, I was green in terms of very, very younger than I am now, inexperienced, being like in a room with much older individuals.
Right.
And again, I come from also a cultural community that how you show your respect is to nod your head and to be polite, and to not push back and just kind of wait, until you're told to do something. And so for me, it was in that moment, it was when I had to really make that conscious choice, because again, I've been so privileged and honored to even be in that room, to have this plan in front of me, to have the trust of those leaders to say, Tiffany is going to push this forward. That to me, that it's not so much about power, but it is that responsibility of knowledge is power, and this is so much bigger than just me or this campaign. We're talking about progress for the Hmong community, for the community at large here. Yes, we want to get the results that we want for election day, but that matters because we're trying to get equity. We're trying to strengthen our community. That is the long picture. That is the long game here. And so that's the day that I chose to go into fundraising. And so for me, that I would say, and especially at that moment, working on a campaign, I didn't know how to start fundraising. Where do you go? It's not like I was working already for a nonprofit and was connected to these, the organizations that have these regular series of nonprofit trainings. I had to go back into the community and say, this is the situation. I was told to do X, and I'm choosing to do Y. And so it was these moments of clarity of yes, I'm scared. Yes, I was anxious because I've never done it. I didn't know what I was doing. And I knew I was going to get pushback from the campaign internally. Again, I'm just kind of really breaking out the mode of what they hired me to do. But it was really, again, going back to a point I said earlier, thanks to other courageous, brave, trailblazers, Asian American leaders in our community now who are also on their journey too, if you would say parallel journeys. That was when they really kind of say, hey, Tiffany, you did the right thing. I will help you. Let's start planning. And so I was able to pull off a very successful fundraiser in the Hmong community. And yes, even that, after it was done, I remember being in the elevator talking to one of the fundraisers for the campaign. And he was like, oh, how did it go? My first instinct was to kind of shy away and to not really talk about the accomplishments. But again, I knew it in my gut that I needed to talk about the accomplishments, because it's not just we raised X number of dollars, but we raised X number of dollars from a culture community. That we are not just only good for our votes. We have power, we have wealth, we are philanthropic. And so there's again just so many other layers in there. So hence why we need to talk loudly about things we do. If we don't, we're always going to be pushed to a certain narrative or being defined a certain way.
No, I hear you. And what I love about your story, let me tell you what I love. What I love about your story is the fact that you didn't necessarily know the ins and outs of fundraising, but you had some incredible intrinsic motivation that was fueling your passion for the get out to vote, that was fueling your passion to think about that long game, think about that end game, right? Like, I'm not just thinking about the results or what's at stake with this election. I'm thinking about long term, like what the effects of this will be or could be for a community that is deeply me, that represents me, that I identify with and I resonate with, and that I like to believe that I have its best interest, right? What I want people on the line, people watching the playback to understand is you don't have to have the ins and outs. You don't have to have a strategy per se. Like, these are things that you can learn.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot learn passion. You cannot fake lived experience, right? You cannot, like, you either have it or you don't. You either have the intrinsic motivation and the commitment to doing what you can on an individual level. These are things that cannot really be taught. I believe that these are things that are innate and that are shaped by our lived experience. And I applaud that, even though you didn't necessarily know that as a young and emergent fundraiser, right, that would go to work for a philanthropy, you took what you had and look at where it has brought you. And the reason I'm doubling down on this and I'm going to allow you to react is because there's someone watching this who's thinking about what they don't have. Yeah. And I'm afraid that when we think about what we don't have, some people allow that, I don't have, right, mentality to keep them from realizing and walking into who they are and what they have to contribute for the betterment of society. I hope that makes sense.
No, yeah, that does. And you summarized it very beautifully. And I think you're right that I could have been paralyzed by, and really the easy path was okay, you already have a plan. It seems like you already thankfully gave me some money to work with. And I could have just been grateful, but I chose not to, not saying that, but again, I understand that there was privilege just even having a budget. But again, I could have went down the easy path, but I didn't. And instead of me holding myself back, it was really I gave myself permission to dream big, to live big, dream big, and to be loud. And it was really from that moment of that moment of clarity, if you would say, is that it really underscored in me the role that I will play for those coming after me. Of I was only able to do this because of the guidance, the wisdom, and really the friendship and partnership from the mentors and coaches that I was telling you about, and the leadership community. And so really from that moment on, even the work that I do now, of not only just breaking ceilings for breaking ceilings point, but how do we pave that path so that way this is sustainable, and that when someone of color becomes the CEO of the next big philanthropic institution or rises up to a C-suite level, we're not applauding because she was the first one who did it, but we're applauding because, oh my goodness, look how far we've come and look at the impact that has made in the community.
Listen, you know, because you watched the podcast, you know I got a tambourine right here. And I am not playing. And I will hit it because you just took me to church, whether you knew it or not. You just took me to church. That is a beautiful, remarkable story, journey. And I'm so happy to be bringing this to the good people out there because I know that this is going to inspire somebody. Tiffany, talk to me about, how do I want to say this? I'm a Black woman. We're women of color in this space, and we know who's been running this space and running it in the ground, for years, right? Um, I know what my lived experience as a Black woman in this space has been like, given my cultural experience, my cultural aspects, my experiences, and how they've informed my approach to fundraising, right? Not having access to the high net worth individuals, not being invited to tables. This podcast was birthed out of that struggle of not being invited to tables, not having the mic, and me saying, you know what, to hell with that. I'm going to create my own, right? So I guess what I want to take a moment and understand is, given your cultural background, your lived experience with poverty, etc., how has all of that shaped your approach to fundraising and how you leverage your heritage to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, especially in this philanthropic space that you sit in?
Yeah, no, that is a great question. I would say that, like, when you're asking me the question, I immediately thought back to what I was doing in my previous role. So I was the development director of Theater Moo. And so Theater Moo is the second largest Asian American theater in the nation. And so I'm talking as if I'm still working there, but I say we because truly I am part of that community. That is
You are.
Yeah, and so of course I'm going to say we. So Theater Moo. So we are located in Minneapolis, but we we're the largest in the Midwest, but second largest in the nation. And I would say that what has really influenced me, so from my first story that I just shared to how I fundraise now, is that what I've learned at Theater Moo, again, because it is a cultural theater, Asian American theater, that my individual strength really is amplified. It really kind of determined by my collective community strength. It was really then there that I saw that, yes, there's these like structural inequities in our community, and there are the disparities, like in the corporate sector, to philanthropy, to whatever you name it, even in theater. When you talk about like who gets funding and who doesn't for like diversity initiatives.
Yeah.
But so going back to Theater Moo is that like you realize that like at the heart of it, yes, money is part of it, but at the heart of it, it's about people. And like what I've realized and what is really different from all of my experiences fundraising is that and again, this may not be true for all communities, but for the folks that I engage with at Theater Moo, for the Asian American and the donors of colors that engage at Theater Moo, is that what they cared about was not necessarily who else was giving the $10,000 check, but it was rather like how many other people are part of this initiative and movement, regardless of how much they gave. That to them was strength and power. It was like strength in numbers.
Yes.
And so for me, and again, going back to what I said earlier, is that like at the heart of all that I do, how I fundraise and what I do is that like it's community engagement, it's community organizing. How are we using this moment, this transaction, or this donor relationship, if you would say, of like, how are we building power? How are we shifting the narrative of like, what does it mean to be an Asian American theater? What does it mean to be a patron of a cultural theater? What does it mean to be a consumer of the arts? And something again of like and I would say, going back to what you're saying of like not being invited to tables, is that one of that, like part of the reason, like one of that, like puzzle, if you would say, is really shifting the narrative of like who actually needs to be at the table. Like, yes, if the topic is a certain topic, like how is that topic defined? like who is defining it? And so at Theater Move, I realized that, like our strength is the number of individuals attending a show, the number of individuals donating, not necessarily of who else was writing the next $10,000 check. And so for me, that was building power. And part of that too, of like even like going from even getting someone to purchase a ticket to donating, of like we really have to shift the narrative and really redefine of like what does it mean to be in this space? How do we even define being like an Asian American professional in theater and philanthropy? Like in so many ways, we're already kind of like shortcutting ourselves or undercutting ourselves because we're not broadening that definition. And so then through a community organizing, community engagement approach, it was why like we were able to grow our donor base so much during my time there, because we weren't looking at it like who's going to give us the next $1 million check. It was but rather like who else can we bring into the fold? Who else should be part of this conversation? Who, like this story that we're trying to tell, it's not just our story, it's everyone's story. So how do we make sure that the voices and the faces and the ideas and thoughts of this community like is being lifted up through the work that we're doing, from the shows that we put on stage to who we're having conversations with about money, or just like who are we bringing to the fold to design and really think about what is the next season of production.
No, this is incredible. Collective impact. I love it. I'm personally motivated by that in this work. What kind of impact can I achieve, right? And what kind of glass ceilings can I shatter, not just for Kia, my tribe, my community, right? By the way, this hat that I'm rocking, shout out to my hat.
It's a beautiful hat.
Thank you. Shout out to my hat. I bought this hat in Brooklyn over the weekend from a beautiful woman from Cameroon. She has a boutique called Culture Boutique. And the reason this hat resonated with me, like the hat had me at hello, behold that, right? Behold that, behold that. This hat grabbed me and I said, please explain the, iconography or the symboling on the hat. And she said, this hat says, for the people, people first. And I said, okay, that's all I needed to know. I have to have that because I live by that. For the people, people first. And that's what I'm hearing from you. And I'm really encouraged by it. I got one follow-up question for you, Tiffany. I want to hear from you the importance of representation and visibility for Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders in the nonprofit fundraising and philanthropy sector, right? And how that has impacted or informed your journey.
I will say that, from my time with Theater Move to the things that I'm involved with now is that, like representation is important, but like progress unfortunately is very slow in our community. And so whether that whether you are a professional working in the nonprofit sector, or you are in philanthropy, or like you're in a hybrid role, similar to me, is that, we need to keep pushing. We need to keep like challenging the narratives that are put onto ourselves, and even the narratives that we tell ourselves because of our experiences growing up, is that like we can do more. We should do more.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
And instead of operating from a scarcity mindset, that like, and not saying that there can't be more resources, there always be more resources that we would need, but we do have strengths and assets already. How do we pull them together? How do we work together to really kind of make tangible and measurable progress for our community and also for ourselves? I am a mother of 3 young kids, and like even more so when I became a mom, that like the legacy that I want to leave behind is that, and I want them to also think of me in this way selfishly, is that I want them to think back about mom and say that she did everything that she could, so that way I could dream big. whether or not, like whether that means I become a doctor or a lawyer or an artist, or I want to be a painter, or I want to be a social worker at a nonprofit. Is that like pave the way so that way I can dream big and I can choose and live out to the best of my abilities rather than being limited and being told that I can only do X, Y, and Z because I come from an immigrant family, because I'm color. And so, yeah, that's what I'm pushing forward.
I keep hearing that theme of collective impact, collective impact, collective impact, bigger than me for the good of community, collective impact. Yeah, this is so rich to me. Thank you for this. So you're a fan of the podcast, and you know that we have a segment that I lovingly refer to as For the Culture, where we talk about rap, hip hop, culture. And there's a reason that we do this. We do this because I'm an 80s baby, and growing up in the hood of East Oakland, living in poverty, like you said that you have lived experience with poverty. No one was talking about the things that I was seeing and experiencing in my community. No one was talking about the misogyny. Now, the news was talking about Just Say No, Reaganomics, the war on drugs, which I'm not even going to get into that whole bust, right? And this isn't conspiracy theory. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it because it just gets my blood boiling, that whole little shakedown. But what I will say is this: while the news was calling us super predators, right? People in the news and people in, the Congress and stuff was referring to, Black children and youth as super predators, never minding the fact that so many of us lost our mothers and fathers to crack cocaine addiction. You might have had a mother that was addicted to crack cocaine and a father that was doing time, because we know that there were policies that resulted in mass incarceration of Black and brown people instituted during that period of time, right? Why am I saying all of this? I'm saying all of this because the only place that I had to turn that talked about the things that I was experiencing and seeing in my community were in rap songs, right? And even in that, rap was criminalized. It was called gangster rap. It was this, it was that. And it's like, okay, it came out of concentrated poverty. It might be all of those things. Multiple things can be true at one time, right? No, it's not all good, but no, it certainly isn't all bad. So the short of a very long story is we celebrate and we pay homage to rap and hip hop culture here because there has been a tremendous amount of anti-Blackness perpetrated on that art form. Yet now it's trendy, right? And everybody loves a good hip hop record. You got hip hop artists and rap artists going to Super Bowl, and everybody acts like, oh, they've always loved it. Wasn't always the case. And still isn't the case, right? Said a very long story, but for those that may not know, I just wanted to take a moment and explain what is Kia talking about fundraising, philanthropy, and rap, because it's part of the culture. So it wouldn't be right for me to send you off without asking you, whether you have a favorite rap or hip hop artist right now, or a favorite song right now, or if you're like me, I'm an 80s baby, so I'm a big golden era rap fan. Like, I'm going to see LL Cool J in Brooklyn on June 25th. I'm there, right? Total golden era rap girl. What's your jam?
Yes, and I would say that, and I think you hit it too, is that like all the work that we do, it's very interconnected. And as you know, is that like from music to theater to art in general, is that it's not just something pretty to listen to or to look at. Like, we are telling a story. We are lifting up the realities and experiences of our people.
That's right.
And so I would say then, when you were talking about your experiences with it, the first band, the first artist that really came to my mind was Kiss the Tiger. So it's a local pop rock band here in the Twin Cities. Why them is because Megan, she like fronts the band, and she is an artist, Asian American artist that I got to know during my time at Theater Boom. And she is not only amazingly talented, but she is like the kindest, but also like the coolest person like you would ever get to know. Where like you're in the same room as her, and like her presence just fills up a space.
Yes,
me being,
space now.
Yeah, and again, me being younger and coming from a culture community again of like more conservative, like I aspire to be loud as her. I want to take up space. And so on top of her amazing vocals, like she has this presence and this charisma that just like you're just drawn to her. In addition to that, she's like, in addition to being part of the band, she's still an artist. And so you can see her at shows. So for me, like she's pushing boundaries everywhere she goes. And so to me, that really resonates. And not only that, there's a song on their latest album called so there's a bad word in it. So it's Grown Blink Woman. But
okay, I think I figured that word out.
So why that song really resonates, and I think this really ties in everything that I've just said, is that like we're all adults. Like I don't need to pretend, and there's really no point of pretending that like I don't know what I want. I know what I want, and I know which path I want to walk on, and so I'm going to go on that path. Amen. And so like just watch me go. You don't need to come with. I'm going to go on my own. And so again, of like, we are inherently already strong, already resilient. We already have the skills and talent already. It's just a matter of like, it's really using these intentional moments in decisions and situations, saying, do I want to take the easy way out, or am I going to walk this path and be loud and proud? And so that song just really ties in everything that I do now and what I believe in. So yeah.
You go and you be loud. You go, girl, and you be loud and proud, and you keep kicking ass and taking names.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And you too, again, I like really appreciate all that you're doing. And like, it's so important to lift up voices and stories of everyone in this work, because truly like we're all learning together. And so let us keep moving forward together.
Absolutely. And I just want to take a moment and thank you for joining me on this episode. Couldn't think of anybody else to have this conversation with, better suited. And just to thank you for defying odds and what norms, right? Like not settling and operating from that intrinsic motivation. Because I'm going to tell you something, Tiffany, and good people listening out there, it has never failed me. People have failed me. Opportunities might have failed me, some opportunities that I'd hoped might have been a yes that turned out to be a no. But just like there have been no's in this line of work that I've seen turn into yeses, it all results from the fact that I followed my moral compass and I operated from that intrinsic motivation, and it has never steered me wrong. So kudos to you, kudos to me, and kudos to anybody out there's listening that's brave enough to be guided and rooted and anchored in that intrinsic motivation to make a difference.
Yes, I agree.
This episode is for you. So thank you for stopping by. Any parting words for the good people out there before we get out of here?
I would say that, I am excited to see what we all do together. And I'm looking forward to hearing more stories about the mountains others climb, the lessons learned, because again, of like, we're truly at the end of the day, I'm going to hammer this down again, of like, we're all in this together. Equity and justice belongs to all of us. And so let us keep marching forward.
Let us keep marching forward, onward and upward, good people. Yes. onward and upward. And if you enjoyed this episode as much as I enjoyed this episode, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button on YouTube. Connect with me on IG. Send me a hey. Sometimes those heys go a long way with me, y'all. When y'all DM me and send me notes and tell me to keep going, that's why I'm here and I'm committed to doing what I'm doing because, you know, people just, it was times when I thought, nobody was listening. It was people like you that said, listen, I'm not only listening, I agree. And it needed to be said. And before you take it back, you add some more to it, okay? And I'm right along with you. So, good people listening, I hope you're encouraged. No matter what comes your way, keep your hand on the plow and your eye on the prize. And until next time, stay tuned, stay down, and keep your head up.